Here we are. Hello again for another session in English. We are going to talk about very specific subjects, but extremely important subjects. We're talking about transporting hydrogen in gas pipes. And that is something that we need to understand. There will be no hydrogen society in the future if we are not capable of transporting massively that molecule. And of course, the gas networks, they exist, they are here. For example, in France, which is a very small gas network compared to some others in the north of Europe, the existing network contains itself 650 terawatt-hour of energy. So it is by itself a transport network, but it is also a storage network. In order to do that, we need to tackle a number of issues, which are technical issues and regulatory issues. In order to do so, I have two invites here that I'm very happy to host. So Michael Walter, who is going to introduce himself, and Christophe Herel. Michael, you're coming from Germany. Please introduce yourself.
Yes. Thank you very much. Good morning together. Yeah, my name is Michael Walter. I'm working for the German Technical and Scientific Association for Gas and Water, DVGW, and there I'm the manager of research and development of the innovation program Hydrogen. So I'm directly involved with hydrogen, and which makes me happy as I'm in hydrogen since 1997. So a very long time, and I did all the dips and highs of hydrogen.
Okay, great. Christophe.
Well, good morning, everyone. Christophe Herel. I work for the French Gas Association. Our members have been traditionally involved in natural gas for a long time, but we got involved in biomethane some years ago, and now they get more and more involved in hydrogen. So we try to help them and to push the hydrogen in France.
Okay, great. Just for maybe not everyone knows that in the old times there were a lot of hydrogen in the pipes until the 70s in France, by the way, because the last production site of Gaz de Ville in Belfort was closed sometimes in 73. So we had already in the past that molecule in our gas pipes. Today it's coming back. It's coming back because we need to produce massively some hydrogen and to transport that hydrogen from production sites to other sites. So I think the gas network companies in Europe are, of course, coordinating their efforts to understand how to do that. And there has been a number of studies recently that were presented. Michael, can you remind us what are the key steps that have occurred recently?
Okay, some steps you have to do is maybe a little bit again on DVGW. We already worked with the town gas you were telling about in Belfort, this engined hydrogen CO mixture, and this is already the origin of DVGW. So we know how to handle hydrogen in the gas pipelines. What needs to be done is to adapt the technical rules to erect and operate such gas pipelines with a new gas. As you already mentioned, we did in Germany also the transition from the old town gas to natural gas in the late 60s, beginning of the 70s of the last century. So technical rules, standards are important. So this means that the gas industry can have some documents they can rely on. And they are working also together with the French Gas Association, it's the same. Also on a European level, Marcogas, to adapt the standards, to define also the technical rules in Germany, for instance, as they are the experts.
Okay. The standards are different from one country to another, Christophe?
No, mainly in gas infrastructure, most standards are developed at European level and adopted in all all countries which are SEN members, which basically means all European countries. And if there's a European standard on a subject, like gas compression, you need to remove your national standard and adopt the European standard. So this makes things easier and safer, I would say. All standards are the same in Europe.
Okay, but before talking about standards and regulation, can we really have hydrogen molecules in our gas network?
Yes.
Okay, in which conditions?
Well, the French gas operators, but also Marcogas, the European Technical Association, published 2 years ago a study where they looked at the whole gas chain from transmission, distribution, up to usage. And this study showed that there's no major problem up to 20% hydrogen in the gas. So there's no problem up to 10%, then some small adaptation between 10 and 20. And then after 20, you can have more important costs to adapt. But basically, their conclusion is that up to 20% we can use in the actual grid.
Okay, what are the impacts if we have more hydrogen? Are we impacting what? The end user, the network itself? Michael, what is your stance on that?
Yeah, the more hydrogen you have in the natural gas grid, the more you change also the behavior of this energy gas. This is physics. So the energy content changes. You might have to transport even more gas to reach the same energy content. So in the end, there's the end customer. On the other hand, it's not that problematic as, for instance, in Germany, we run together with a distribution network operator, a project, it's called H220, where we inject 20% into a natural gas grid and 400 customers. And this is not industry, are connected to this network, and we check the behavior of their gas boilers when more hydrogen is present in natural gas. So the first results show it's quite safe.
Okay, but actually we have two kind of problematics. They're on transport networks and they're on distribution networks. Okay, and they are all interconnected at some point. And the transport networks are interconnected between countries, right? So it's maybe a very complex landscape. Do the gas company really know already what they can do, what they need to improve, and how they can eventually, at some point, introduce hydrogen in networks that are not ready for it? What is the perspective of the gas network companies?
Speaking of Marcogas again, the European Technical Association, the next step after identifying the acceptability of hydrogen, now they are working on the cost of adapting to hydrogen at different levels, 10, 20, 100%. So this will give an idea of what can be done or not, and what can be adapted or should be replaced. For example, some gas appliances will not be able to go up to 100% and will have to be replaced. We already see that in the north of France, where we replace the low calorific gas by a high calorific gas, with Dutch gas being less and less produced. And we see that some appliances need to be adapted. Maybe the boilers, maybe the cooking appliances will need to be adapted and sometimes replaced.
Okay, and I guess that depending upon the type of customers, the end user customers, the problematics are very different. Of course, a gas boiler in a domestic house is something, but an industrial may have some impacts on production processes. Do you see main differences between the different type of users?
There are some issues. So if you, for instance, have a production process that relies on pure methane, then any additional gas component changes your process or the behavior of that. So we have to look for possible mitigation solutions for that. On the other hand, some other production processes, they do not care.
Okay.
So we have to look distinctively into these regions, but in general, I would say it's not that problematic.
Okay, but all the networks are interconnected, so all the gas companies need to agree on standards and regulation.
They are doing.
They are doing?
They are doing. Yeah, here Christophe is working for the French Gas Association. I'm working for the German Technical and Scientific Association for Gas and Water. And our members are the gas companies. These are the distribution network operators. These are the transport system operators. And they are talking to each other. Then we also saw in the past the European Hydrogen Backbone Initiative, where we assemble the big TSOs in Europe. And the same goes now in Europe with Ready for Hydrogen, which connects the distribution network operators. So they are talking to each other what has to be solved. And how can we get to the hydrogen energy system? Europe is talking about, and the European Commission, as well as the services of the European Commission, are also aware of that.
Okay. What is the roadmap? How many years do we need to get to an agreement, to a regulation framework that will work? Do we have an idea about that, or not yet?
There will be different steps, and one of the first steps will be the gas package. The European Commission will publish on the 14th of December this gas with several regulations to make Europe ready for fit for 55. Mm-hmm. And already there will be indication in the Renewable Energy Directive, for example, on the level of renewables that the European Commission wants from member states. So this will be a first step. And there will be revisions. For example, the Renewable Energy Directive is already the second revision. There will be revisions in the future. But things have started. For example, when we mentioned the European backbone, there's already a project in the north of France called Mosaic, and between France and Germany, 100 kilometers of natural gas pipes are being converted to hydrogen. So it will take time, but it starts already. In the south of France, there's also a project from Storengy to convert a natural gas salt cavern to hydrogen, to store hydrogen produced from solar electricity. So things have started already.
But these are examples of actually using an empty pipe for transportation of 100% pure.
It's a repurposing, yes.
Yeah, it's a pure transport network in this case between Mosaic in Grand Est, in Région Grand Est, between Germany and France. And do you have also example of deployments in other networks where we actually blend hydrogen with existing natural gas? I think
presently I do not know a cross-border project like that. The one, and this is from my point of view, the unique one is the project I already mentioned, H220, where we injected 20% of hydrogen into an existing natural gas grid. A similar project, but with 100% of hydrogen in a gas grid, we have in Eastern Europe. It's operated, or it's within the HyPOS initiative, where we serve industry plus the normal end customer, so common people like you and me.
Okay. And in France, there are similar projects, I think. Yeah?
We had prototypes to inject in distribution. It was called Grid in the north of France, or Jupiter 1000 in transmission pipes in south of France. But we also have a consultation group which has been created a few years ago, where both gas transmission companies, but also gas producers, hydrogen producers, hydrogen users, discuss how to prepare a mapping of France with zones where hydrogen is acceptable at different levels. The idea of this mapping is to help people having projects to either produce or use hydrogen, to know where it's easier.
So I think also the strategic objective for various countries are different. Germany, for example, says clearly we will need a lot of green hydrogen produced from wherever it's possible and import that for our own usage. So that's one thing. We discussed about that this morning. between Germany and Morocco, for example. But other countries are considering hydrogen as a way to very quickly decarbonize their usages by putting hydrogen in distribution network, like in Great Britain with Northern Gas Network in some towns in north of England, in order to totally replace the natural gas in the normal usage, including heating. Is this something that we see potentially happening in north of Europe as well?
Yeah, for instance, in the Netherlands, we have a similar project where there's a repurposing of a natural gas grid to pure hydrogen. We will see it in Germany, we will see it in all European countries. There is a but. And the but is something that we figured out in a European project where we looked into the transmission grids and trying to check the regulatory frameworks in the single European 27 plus UK countries. And there we see that there's a mismatch. So if we like to go to a pure hydrogen system, may it the distribution network or may it be the transport network, we need to harmonize it as we are transporting gas cross-border. So we have presently another issue in Europe. We will not talk more about that, but this gas is transported from a point X to a point Y, and we do it with hydrogen lately as well. And we are crossing borders. So what we need to do is to harmonize all our legislation regarding the gas grids and the regulation at European level, so that a French power-to-gas operator can inject the hydrogen into the gas grid, and a customer somewhere in Denmark, I would say, takes it out. And it's a French-colored hydrogen molecule that is burned, for instance, in Denmark.
Yeah, this harmonization between European countries is obviously a mandatory or a prerequisite, but we were also talking about transporting hydrogen from abroad, really far away, North Africa, Saudi Arabia. There are projects everywhere. In terms of regulation here, different problems to tackle, because between Europeans, I guess we can reach agreements, but do we need to align something specific with the countries far away abroad?
Well, if we want to import via pipes, we already are used to it. But if we want to import via ships, as we do for liquefied natural gas, it is possible. There's already export from Australia to Japan of liquefied hydrogen. So we could also in Europe import liquefied hydrogen. But for the moment, the International Maritime Organization has no regulation covering this. So they will need to adapt it. And usually we start by having projects, prototypes, which is the case already between Australia and Japan, and then we build standards. So once the standards are adopted, they can become law for IMO and then be used internationally.
Okay, so there are technical issues, regulatory issues, political and geostrategic issues. It's a very complex thing to fix, huh? And we do need to do that, and we do need to do it quickly, for massive amounts of energy to transport. Are we really ready to do that? I know that the gas network companies have been working on that for a long time, but realistically speaking, what is your personal take on that?
If I take the example of biomethane, for example, the first regulation clarifying in France the incentive was 10 years ago. And now we see a huge increase in biomethane in France. But it took years. I think the hydrogen market will also need to have a clear vision, and incentives are one big part of it, to know when and how fast they can start.
I would say it should be clear that hydrogen has its place in all energy sectors. That means in industry, in transport, in the heating sector, and also in the production of electricity. So the re-electrification of hydrogen that is originated from a wind or solar power. So using this small molecule with its broad impact and reach out. And this should be clear for all,
Yeah.
also all politicians, I would say.
Yeah, we need to totally revolutionize the energy system, and we don't have too much time to do it. So we need to align, and it's good to see that the European countries as well are discussing together. I would like to thank you very much to be here and to uncover this very complex subject, but very strategic. There will be no hydrogen society without transport network for hydrogen. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.